Hi, I'm Elliot Margulies from the MidPenn Media Center in Palo Alto, California, USA. And I'm really excited because we're joined by people in 7 different countries to talk about how the pandemic has impacted our lives. And it's 10 a.m. here, but in some places it's evening. It's getting to be autumn here, and I think in some places it's spring. So we're going to just introduce ourselves quickly by saying our name and our location and who we're sharing our household with, if anyone. So, Katerina.
I am Caterina Borelli. I am in Rome at the moment and I live by myself, but I take care of my father that lives just next door to me. He's 97.
Thank you, Fabiana.
Hi, my name is Fabiana Garcia. I live in Caracas, Venezuela. I currently live with my parents who are elderly citizens and my 2 children, 19 and 7-year-olds.
Yes, I'm Marianne Ottosen. I live in Denmark in the southern part of Zealand, about 80 kilometers south of Copenhagen. I live with my husband and we live in a communal living project with 12 houses.
Hi, I'm Monica. I live in Mexico City. I live with my husband, my 26-year-old son, and that's it.
Hi, my name is Ora, and I live in Jerusalem, Israel, with my husband and my daughter, who's my youngest child, and my dog and my cat.
I am from the south of Brazil, but now I'm living in São Paulo with my family, my husband and 2 kids. I am driving to the country club to let them play for a little bit. So this is the reason that we have a schedule. We can go in from 1 to 5. So just as the reason that I am driving, because I'm going there. I work as a dietitian in the health public system here in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, in very poor area.
I'm Tulio Calderon. I live in Argentina, in the Patagonia region, in Bariloche. I'm here with my wife and my daughter and grandson.
Thank you, Tulio. We don't often think about how connected we are around the world. We really should be. Over these past 7 months or so, we've all been confronted by this deadly virus that has already killed almost 1 million people of us all around the world and counting. We are all taking measures to try and stay safe. We're all waiting and hoping for a vaccine. And in today's conversation, we're going to compare notes about how the pandemic has affected us externally, the masks we wear, the shopping we do, the work we do, and also how it's affected us internally. What kinds of emotions have we been dealing with? What kinds of challenges internally? And even what silver linings have come to us during these 7 months. So before we jump into that, I wanted to ask if you would raise your hand if you've actually gone through this disease, if you've experienced COVID.
We didn't suspect because I was working. So I got very upset about going to work every day and come back for my kids. And I was the only one leaving the house. We could go to some, residents to visit to some people, to some patients. And we got all, the equipment to go in. But the thing was, and we got nervous because it was only elder people, very sick people that was in bed for a long time. So they need us, and we must go to the residents to see them, to treat them, because they couldn't go. And Saturday March 20, I start to have a fever, the next day. And I got very worried about me and, go to work and come back. But I was not sure. I got 5 weeks absent from March to April. And then in May, I did the test because every PCR test came negative to me. So I was sure about coronavirus. On May 23, we did a test and then this was positive. But from March to April, I got very sick nearby to Easter time. And I didn't know that was because, it was just fever, headache, pain, but not high fever like everybody was showing. I got really upset, nervous, and anxious.
During the time you were sick, did you receive any treatment at doctors or hospitals or people coming to your house?
No, just the phone calls. The thing was, that was okay when I got back to my work days. My group, my colleagues, they helped me a lot with my anxious and when I got nervous.
Is everything covered while you were gone? You didn't lose any money?
No, I didn't.
Monica, did you also go through this experience?
Yes, I got it, but it was already September the 5th. So they said that it's better to get it later because there's more research about it, but I didn't have much of it. It was only a lot of fatigue. I'm tired and I am still tired, and a headache. But I never had fever. I never had nothing with the lungs. So I'm happy because now I feel a lot of freedom that I can now kiss my granddaughters. But it has been scary before that because you never know how it's going to be and if there will be some consequences after it. I feel grateful.
And did your government help out in any way, Monica, in terms of medically or wages or any of the things that you may need?
No, really the assistance I'm looking for, and I feel very, very grateful, is by the Jewish community. The government, we will get there, but in Mexico, the government is a disaster, complete disaster. But the Jewish community makes us feel very safe and protected. They have good information, and every 3 or 4 days, they send how the statistics are within the community, how many infected, how many hospitalized, how many deaths, how many they went over it. And you have to tell the community, there is an organization within the community, where if you get sick, you have to get a registration. So they get you into the statistics and they give you a lot of support. What medications, if you need to do this or that or that. So that's our support, the best one.
Thank you. And that's in Mexico City she's talking about. So let's talk about some of the ways that we ourselves have been wearing masks and whether we've gone shopping, how we've changed over the months, if we have. How have you approached that, Mariana? Denmark.
Yeah, our country closed down immediately. We have a female prime minister, and she worked with all the health departments and the hospitals and the researchers. So immediately everybody was sent home from their work. Kids were sent home from school, and people had to work from home, and the children had to learn from home. So the streets became very empty. And we used Zoom like we do here to connect with each other and other kinds of media. I never tried it before this pandemic, but we only recently have to start wearing masks. But immediately we have to wash our hands, we had to keep distance, and we had to get, there was what is it called, alcohol everywhere to wash your hands, to wash surfaces, and we're instructed how to do that. Where I live now, we are 12 houses, and we used to eat 4 days a week together, and we share making food. But we closed that down until this summer. We haven't at all eaten together until about a month ago, or 2 weeks ago, we started again. But now we do it with every second seat and distancing. And we had meetings outside, you know, at a distance. People really did what they were supposed to do, and it was very comforting. And going to shops, they put screens up between the people who worked there when we had to go to the counter and check out. We're encouraged to go early in the morning when we're older, and I'm older. And for the longest time, I didn't wear a mask because I didn't have to. I just washed my hands. They had gloves and went through the thing. And I've been tested twice, and both times have been negative. And now they're testing about 70,000 a day? They really test these days, and they're going to do some research in antibody tests to see how is the population doing. And our population is very low, but it's now exploding right now, and they're cracking down immediately and really encouraging the social responsibility deal. We're all responsible to stay safe, not to, infect each other.
Thank you.
So,
it sounds like you have a lot of trust in what your government is doing.
Yes. Some people are against the wearing mask, and that's also because research doesn't show if masks help with viruses. They do with bacteria, but they're not sure, but people do it anyway.
And there were many instances of collective things. So people started at a certain hour, a certain time to sing together from their balconies, or do, basically was singing or making noise. Some places people made, like in a street in Rome, they made a concert, like everybody, on a different window. So there was this need of collectivity, because Italian people are also very collective people, so it's hard for them to feel isolated.
I want to tell you, Katerina, that we watched that on TV, that you were singing, and then they started doing this morning singing together, but separately. So they would have that on TV, and everybody was sitting in the houses singing together just because of you Italians. I just went to the theater this week for the first time, and with my family. We all wore masks. We had to sit at every second seat, and there we could take the mask off. It was wonderful too. We saw Jesus Christ Superstar rock opera from the 70s. It was great.
That's
but
wonderful.
We wore masks for the first time, and now we have to wear masks if you take public transportation, and everybody does it actually. So yes, I'm very trustful. I'm very happy I live here. I follow what goes on in the States, and my friends, I lived there for 15 years. Oh, I feel it's a catastrophe. And my friends say, oh, I want to go live with you in Denmark.
I understand. We'll talk about our governments. Let's go to Argentina, to Tulio. Tell us about how it's changed your lifestyle and where you get your messaging that you trust.
At the beginning of the pandemic, it was early March. And actually, we work here, but we do projects globally. So our first concern is getting everyone back home. If you remember those times, there was such an amount of unknowns, and I would guess that fear of the uncertainty was the most prevalent feeling. So what we did is in the country, there was something that was called mandatory social isolation. So it's complete lockdown. You had to stay home, no traffic. You had to stay in, and every two weeks, a new renewal would be called upon. So it took us quite a time to get all our employees back. I work in a technology company. We're like 1,500. So we sent everyone home in over 1 week. And so imagine we had to sort of invent most of our way through, as everyone did, inventing protocols for doing this type of Zoom and Google and all this type of not social, but trying to get people to actually do real useful work. And I remember the first time I went out to a supermarket, that was like a week into the pandemic. It was really unusual. Still, the idea of isolation seemed strange to everyone. Everyone had to wear masks. There was a big discussion at the time, and in the end, this idea of social responsibility, that you have to wear your mask just not to send your possibility of viruses to other people. So it's not for you, it's for the rest. And today's mandatory, it's part of life. Everyone here has masks all the time.
Beginning, I came back, I was in the US in February, and I came back to Rome at the end of February. And a week later, March 8th, that is Women's Day, we basically the lockdown happened either on the 8th or on the 7th, after some towns in the north were like decimated, really had a super high infection rate, and because of very stupid things like a football match that was allowed when they already knew that there was the COVID running around. So anyway, on March 8th, we closed, and nobody could move. And if you were caught outside, you had to show a paper, a self-certify, a paper where you self-certify why you're out. And
to police?
If they stop you. You were allowed to go only to work or like to the pharmacy, to really necessary place, or because you had to go to buy food. And they were quite thorough. When you would go out to buy food, I would try to go out just once every 10 days or something like that, and do a very, very big shopping. When I would go out, I would see people being stopped. So the system functioned. And again, I'm taking care of my father. And so I was worried about bringing it home. And we were me and a caretaker. And usually she works part-time in another place, and she couldn't go out. And my problem to begin with was to keep her in control, because she panicked. So at the beginning was really trying to make the thing like not normal, because it's impossible, it was not normal, but make a routine for us. So everybody had a role, and my father wouldn't lose sense of time because he couldn't leave, and she wouldn't freak out. So every morning I got him up, I washed him, I gave him breakfast that usually I don't do, and then she took over. And we had our National Independence Day, that was April 25th. And that was really moving, because people went and sang this resistance song. And it was, I'm actually, feeling moved now thinking about it, because it was really a moment in which you feel that if something horrible happened, the collectivities functions, like there is a collectivity, there is a sense of like togetherness. So everybody, like when we went out, we were wearing masks, of course, and we still, if we go inside, any place inside we go, we have to wear masks. In the street, if we want, we don't wear it. And then every public place, like a restaurant, have space, between the tables. I went to the movie this week twice, and we have space. You can only book 2 movies at a time. And every place you go, like the restaurants, for example, they take your names or the hairdressers. So in case somebody will develop COVID, they have to notify where they've been. And so the business can notify the people that were with you.
We don't have our movie theaters open yet, and we don't have restaurants open except if you're eating outside. But in the United States, every state could be different. I'm only talking about California. Anyway, so Ora, let's go to Israel.
Israel, guys, is a whole different story. When the whole COVID thing started in Israel, Israel acted very, very quickly. Because we only have really one functioning airport, Israel very quickly basically expelled all the tourists that were here and closed the country off. And these measures appeared to have worked. There was a lockdown, but it was initiated slowly, not all at once. Every other day, our prime minister would come up and say, okay, so now we're going to do this, and now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. But it did work, and the numbers in Israel were very good. You should, by law, wear a mask all the time. That was changed a few times. People do see each other, but it's very long and complicated. Things changed the whole time. Basically, what happened in Israel is apparently that they opened up too fast. The minute they opened the school system and the workplaces, even though they did it somewhat gradually, the numbers started to go up. The fact that Israel is a very divided society and it is divided into sectors is also reflected in what happened here with COVID. The main problem in Israel right now is the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, which in any case has no respect for the government or for society, and this whole collective social responsibility business just doesn't apply to them. The second community that has very little respect for the government or trust in the government is the Arab community, the Muslim community mostly. Again, it's a community that, without going into everything, for historical and social reasons, doesn't trust the government. And it's a community also that, like the ultra-Orthodox, live in very crowded conditions and attend crowded events like weddings, prayers at the mosque. We see a high rate there, although I think that they are trying to respect the law. In terms of the numbers, and there's a lot of debate on it, the number of infected people who are tested positive, is very large. The number of hospitalized people and the number of deaths is still very, very low. And because of that, and lots of other reasons, political reasons I won't start to go into, we've had a wave of serious protests, including one last night, although we're officially in lockdown, huge protest against the government.
We stay at home. There has been a lockdown since March 13th, very, very early on. As soon as the first case was known, the country was shut down. To give you a little bit of context of what I went through at the beginning, I lived in Colombia for almost 6 years. And I moved to Caracas on February 4th of this year. So I had only been in Caracas for a month with my 2 children. My husband stayed back in Colombia, hoping to come back this July, and that has not been possible because of shutdown. But it was very weird for us to be back after all this time. Teenage son, little daughter, 7-year-old. For them, there were a lot of changes going on at the same time, and then 4 weeks later, lockdown. Even I had to deal with my son's anxiety for not having his friends, not living in the country he has known for the last 6 years of his life. My daughter not even knowing pretty much this country or the family because she left here when she was only 1 year old. Me just coming back after all those years. And I had to juggle my husband being away, COVID, not knowing what was going on. But I was here back home with my parents who are elderly. They would have been here all by themselves, going through this. So, when you talked about the silver lining, yes, there is a silver lining in every story. I couldn't be happier to be where I am and who I'm with, because I'm here trying to support my parents. My dad has kidney failure, so he goes through 3 times a week, he goes through dialysis treatment. He has to go to a hospital, which is high risk. And, I try to support my parents doing that and taking him back and picking him up sometimes. And, it's my son is getting adjusted, things like Zoom and social media have been key for him to keep his social life going. For teenagers is a whole other story. My daughter only went to school here for 2 weeks, so she lost her friends in Colombia and she didn't have enough time to make friends here. So, I'm juggling a lot of things, but overall, we've all kept safe. We are financially stable in a way that we could go out and do our groceries, and we're eating okay. And the government, even though we tend not to trust it, has been acting upon measures for everybody outside to wear their mask. Is not officially like mandatory, but everybody wears a mask anyways. It's like everybody already, they know, even if your government is not telling you to do it, you have to do it for yourself and take care of yourself and your family. So that has not been a problem. We have many other problems, but the COVID situation has been somewhat taken care of.
Let's hear from Rosie, sorry, in Brazil, because my understanding is your leadership is similar to our Trump, but how are people trusting the messaging? Are people wearing masks? Are there police that will cite you if you're too far away from home?
We could walk around with no problem using mask, but this is our decision. You know that Brazilian government is very lazy, and our president doesn't care, doesn't believe in coronavirus like Trump. He used to do it like Trump said, he used to do it here. And people are start to see that this is very bad. Our public system, health system, was really important for the people. And now they know that our public health system is very important for every Brazilian, everyone. And the people work and use mask and use safety stuff because we are worried about each other, and our family and friends. So we didn't have a social life. We just come here to the club and walk around the house. Everybody use mask in the public, go out just for, buying food, go to pharmacy, and slowly people are coming back. The kids, they are at home trying to do homeschooling, but the poor people they have 3 or 4 or more children. So one cell phone, and sometimes they don't have internet. So they go to the school to get the material, books or so, and then come back and have some school activities just by writing and reading. But they are still have online school, on the end of the year, from now to the end of the year. My daughter, my husband, and my son are working at home all the time since March, the second week of March. They were at home.
How do you get the messages about how to stay safe from COVID? Who do you trust and who do you follow?
And we are just trying to have a safety environment where we live, where we work, just by ourselves,
So everybody is doing something different?
Yes, yes.
And every day the government had briefings where you had the prime minister, you had the minister of health, and those 2 departments, one is on research and one is on dealing with health problems in the country. And then there's the police who had to make sure that everything went well. These people were on the panel for about an hour every day. And it was really helpful because you got all the information, all the pros, all the cons, and everybody wanted to be helpful. And they used, I love that, and I looked it up. We were encouraged to use community spirit. So the word community spirit became the big word. Are you socially responsible? And what about your community spirit?
In the last few days, the number are peaking in Spain and France and the UK, while Italy and Germany are stable. And that's really a surprise for the Italians and for the European, because we have this fame of being unruly. And instead, what the pandemic brought was that really people follow the rules. That is very strange for Italy, especially from Florence down. People, and actually what really saved the Italians is that the worst, the hotspot were in the north, were in the highly industrialized area in the north. And those areas are also the one that better organized usually, and with a better health system. So probably what made the thing more manageable for Italy were on one side the fact that people really got scared and follow the government guidance, and the fact that didn't reach the south.
And over the first 2-3 months, the government had a real sort of a positive feedback from everyone, because the pandemic just didn't catch in. But slowly it eroded away and it got caught into a political partisan play. The sort of center-right said we have to open up the economy, and the present-day government center-left, they still have to lock down. So there's this debate now, and we're entering springtime, so things are ramping up in number of cases, just because people they know they have to stay home. But now bars are open, there's a ski resort here, it's open, and everyone can do their almost normal life. And we are sort of entering this new normality phase.
So are you already seeing a heightening? The number of cases are going up because of this divide politically?
Yes, actually, we have not been through a peak like what happened in Europe or even in other countries. No, So the case in Brazil, the case in India, the case in the States is that the peaks have happened in certain cities. But when you look at countrywide, and the same is happening in Argentina, we're in this long ramp going up. So still it's not plateauing. It's not going into a more stable, and it's not decreasing.
And every day at about, I don't remember if it was at 6 or 7, we got a news report from the government where the health officials would tell us numbers and would tell us what was known. The evolution of the information about the illness. And that was really a moment in which all of Italy was watching TV, and it really marked times in your life, and it was really helpful.
It sounds like you have felt like the messaging from your government has kept people safe.
Yeah, and it's very unusual because we don't trust our politician. We are living in a moment in which the relation between politician and people is a disaster.
But people are trusting the messaging around COVID from the government, or yes?
Yes, around health issues, yes, because they saw if it works.
I think there's a basic distrust of the government by almost everybody. Nobody really believes anybody anymore, not the health people, not the government. The feeling is that the only one who makes decisions and decides is the prime minister, and he's basing it on his political needs and his legal needs because he's on trial on corruption. They did hire a professor, someone very experienced to run the whole Corona hierarchy, the whole Corona project in Israel, but they really haven't allowed him to do what he thinks he should do. And
whoever is familiar with the Venezuelan case would know that we have a socialist, communist type of government, military, and the majority of us don't trust it. I have been anti-government for the last 22 years, but with COVID, it has been a completely different experience. Illness, like collective illness and dead people, are very hard to hide. When there is like a health crisis, it's impossible for government or anybody to like completely hide it. Of people, of friends, family members. And this is not happening here. So we feel, even though we tend not to trust our government, we know they might be telling the truth this time.
Let me switch gears a little bit to more of our internal experience. I know there is this surreal quality that we've been going through. It's like, is this really happening? And then also our own personal lives have their layers of reality. Talk about what, if you have had to deal with some emotional challenges, what are the main ones that have come up for you while these months of pandemic have been happening? And how do you help yourself deal with those emotions?
At the beginning of the pandemic, when it started to hit us, that this is something that we've never known before, I felt a few feelings. First of all, there was fear of the unknown. I was never, ever afraid that something was going to happen to me. I don't know why, but I wasn't. But I was afraid of the impact it would have on our life. When I look at what's happening to the younger generation, like my daughter, who's at home and out of work and left school, and I think that the effect on the younger generation is really, really huge, probably devastating to a certain extent. to many, many of the young people. And I don't know how they're going to come out of it. I'm okay. You know, we're set already. We did our bit.
In March, we started the lockdown, and I had a very great friend and colleague, one of the founders of our company, a very nice guy. Everyone liked him, and he passed away in May. Heart disease we didn't think was so bad. The incredible thing is no one could go and visit him in the days before, and his kids couldn't go to the funeral. And he was not here in town. He was all the way in Buenos Aires, like 1,000 miles away. So there were only four people who could show up. So sort of this essential things of life, you have to sort of try to put your feelings somehow around them and do your mourning, go through your cycles, and just, so we said, hey, we have to do a memorial for this guy. We have to somehow tell him. And everyone said, he's out in the newspapers, a very well-known guy. I said, well, that's for 2021. And we said, let's survive 2020 and let's do the things we have to do in 2021. And this was not only the only occasion. Then I had similar issues with a family friend. And basically he got ill, and he's still ill today, and we cannot go and visit him.
In my case, my father died the first week of March. So I was with him his final week in Florida, and we kept hearing about the pandemic, but that just seemed like another layer that I wasn't really fully taking in, except I knew, I hope I can fly back safely, and you know, but it sort of set the whole year off in a way that just gets, and then we had all the wildfires here in California that made our sky sometimes bizarre. And it's like, it seems endless this year.
I had this big thing that I had to confront, that was, what do I do if my father gets sick? I don't want to bring my father to the hospital. I don't want him be in a situation where nobody can see him. He would be terrified. He would be terrified in a normal situation. With COVID, it would be devastating. It would be a horrible way of dying for him alone. So I pretty much knew that my sisters would agree with me. So once I confronted that was like a bit of let's say, of a panicky feeling. That was fine with me. I knew what I had to do in that sense. Besides being tired, I didn't feel isolated, because me and the caretaker grew closer. And also the family was very present. One of my nieces really started saying, oh, we should cook together. So there was a lot of cooking together, a lot, and everybody participated. And that was really nice, very, very nice. And we also did it, started Zooming with my cousins. So there was a sense of support for each other.
In May of 2019, my father died, but we always thought that my mother would die before him, and we were preparing about it. But she lived with a cancer, but okay. So I told my mother, you are coming to live with me. So in March, she came to live with me. She used to be a very independent woman. She had a degenerative macula. Do you know what that is? It's something in the eyes. She was not seeing very well. So she couldn't live alone. That was impossible. She needed to take a lot of medicine. And she's not like your father, Katerina, 92, I think you said. She was only 80. But she was ill. So I lived 2 weeks. She was 2 weeks with me. Then she moved 2 weeks with my sister. Then she returned with me 2 weeks. And that was an opportunity for us to be with her, to accompany her in her death, because we knew she was dying, because she didn't want to eat. it was not that she didn't want, she couldn't eat. So it was very hard. It was very sad, but it was beautiful because since all the old people in this pandemic have been, not all, we can see not all, but a lot of the old people are living alone because they shouldn't be with the young and all this that we all know. We decided to take care of her and we said everything we wanted to say. And we were so grateful for this opportunity and we said it. We said thank you every day for being together. So it was hard. In May 19, she passed away and nobody could go with us for a Shiva, for the 7 days of the Jewish tradition. It was me and myself with my husband and my daughter and son, and not those 7 healing days because they are really healing days. And 3 months after that, I had a granddaughter. So I could live this circle of life. No, it was nice that it was dead before the beginning.
We live in an apartment building, and my dad is not in any condition to be able to walk around and for me to take him on walks or anything. He can barely get to his dialysis treatment 3 times a week. But being back has given us, and being confined has given us the great opportunity for my parents and for my children to not only live together, but share a lot of quality time together and get to know each other. You see, they haven't been together for almost 6 years. So they barely knew my daughter, who was a baby. And when my son left, he was only 13, and now he's a 19-year-old. We sit around the table, all of us, and we have 3 whole generations sitting at a table, and my parents can get to know my children, and my children get to know my parents' stories, And for me, hadn't it been for the pandemic, that wouldn't have been possible. We would have taken all this time for granted, probably. You see? So for us as a family has been a great gift.
My daughter's pregnancy was really strange because I could not be close to her in all the process. And when she gave birth, she went alone with her husband to the hospital. Nobody could go with them. But now we are seeing each other. It's not maybe the best thing to do, but we decided to be together. And since I had COVID, I feel very like tranquil with that, but my husband has not had COVID. I feel it was a million years ago that my mother died, and it has been only 4 months. But this is the time is really different in these times. I think you agree with me that we are not living time like always, but in a different way. It's strange.
It's very perceptive. Thank you. That whole aspect of time and how long things have felt is very interesting, something I hadn't really thought about, but you're right, like that. Also, my grandson was born 6 hours after my father died. So the same birthday and death day.
I think that the first 6 months of this was really hard in terms of not being able to touch and being in the same room with people. And in my husband's family, they had a huge crisis and with the grandchildren there. And I found it really, really difficult not to just show up and be there and be part of what was going on the way I used to. And, we had to self-isolate, all of us, in the beginning. So I found that to be really shattering. And actually, I got very fearful of losing the connection because they were teenagers. It was a very important time. I really had that feeling, wow, am I going to lose these people I love so much?
The only thing that was really missing for me were my friends. So, and actually before the lockdown, we had a dinner between the four people that are very close, and the fact of not being able to touch them and to hug them was very strong. It was really like, we would like look at each other and say, I cannot say, you know, I can't say goodbye by hugging you. That was really weird. And when we met again 2 months later or 3 months later in a park having a picnic, was also weird because we were 2 meters apart and we couldn't share the food. Now we're almost in a normal situation in the sense that we wear masks, we have to sanitize our hands and things. But the thing we cannot do is touch. And this is very much missing. This I miss a lot.
On the positive side, I learned to appreciate my neighborhood. I live in a very pretty neighborhood in Jerusalem. And I learned to enjoy our parks and our little pretty corners and taking walks with friends and with my husband and with my dog. Luckily, I've been here for so long and I know so many people that I managed to have quite a social life, even though men taking walks a bit far apart from each other, but taking walks, sitting in parks, talking, getting an ice cream.
You know, I live in a house that has backyard, has front yard, has a tree in the yard, and the street is full of trees. So this is different area that some people live here in Sao Paulo. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my work because the poor people need us, really need us, and it's really important to be there. I'm grateful for all.
Nature has been an incredible help. I mean, my husband and I, we had a dog. We had to put it to sleep. It was sick here a month ago, but we took long walks in the woods and we have wonderful nature around us and areas that now when we walk, because even though we don't have a dog, we are taking each other on the dog leash, so to speak, and taking walks. But it was filled with families when under the worst lockdown. And it was really nice to see all these people in the woods. Now we see very few, but it's wonderful, the trees and the plants. And I saw every leaf. I mean, we saw the leaves. We went every single day in the woods and every little leaf got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've never observed. That was incredible. And that really helped mend some of that longing for nearness and contact.
And I have a garden and I never was aware of how the flowers open. And I could see the opening of the flowers with my mom.
I live in a very touristy neighbor in Rome, very, very crowded. And all of a sudden there was this incredible peace. And this was like the exterior peace, the external peace, the fact that nature took over, that birds came back to my terrace. And it was really like the birds made a lot of difference. You could hear natural sound. Helped me very much keep me in peace.
I would like to ask if people have thought that they've learned something about themselves.
I have found that I've gotten to have a deeper peace inside of me and trust in terms of things will be okay and I'm okay. And I find that I react much more calmly. My husband and I have been very happy through this more peaceful time. And somebody asked me to work a little bit for them. And I decided, no, there's a limit to how much I want to work. It has to be calm and slow. I'm slow. Yeah, I must be able to be slow.
I remember in Passover, which is around Easter for those who don't know, it's a Jewish holiday, which starts out with a very big meal called a Seder. And we always do it with a group of friends. And we, of course, couldn't do it this year with the same friends. And we decided to Zoom the Seder, which was our first big Zoom. And I got so excited about it. I said, my God, it was like my first social event in over a month. And when we did, we Zoomed, part of the Seder for about half an hour. And it was like, it was great. It was exciting. And I think that we're all feeling that we appreciate the little things in our life more, or the things that we took not for granted, but things we just accepted as part of our routine.
My wife and I got in the car. We drove 10 hours to San Diego to see the little boy that was born the day my father died in early March. And, and then also I have twin sons. The other one lives in Santa Barbara in Southern California. And they both have a daughter and a son the same ages. And even though it was only 6 hours at each place with masks on most of the time, totally outside, it felt like the best medicine. Everything is magnified, and the good pleasures in life, it doesn't take so much to feel like your cup is overflowing.
Mariana said something that really resonates with me, and if I would have to say one thing, that would be also is like I'm not interested anymore in this rush of getting better, making more, achieving, No, it's like why always more? It's fine. But I want to end on a hopeful note. I read this article, this interview in the New Yorker with this medical historian, and she say, you look at history, and after the Black Plague, there was the Renaissance. So this is like really what I'm looking forward to, for us and for young people as well, that there will be a renaissance.
This is the first time maybe ever that all around the world, we know what is happening in everywhere. I know there are differences between the governments and the feelings, but we are sharing so many things together. That's amazing. And that I don't know if there has been another time in the history of the world that we share so many similarities.
There are so many things that unite us more than separate us. Just take global warming. And just to get back to you, we're having here, and we're starting spring wildfires in the center of our country, as not as bad as the ones you're having now in California. But again, there are many things that basically now we are sharing in this meeting, in this month. And it would be great if part of this renaissance, as you called it, Katerina, would mean that we can look at these things that basically affect all of us and get some things done globally and locally.
I would just like to thank everybody for taking a chance when you didn't know me from Adam, and I emailed you to see if you would join a conversation with strangers like me. And I just hope this kind of way of connecting between just citizens. We should be connecting. We should be approaching especially worldwide problems like climate change that Tulio just brought up as people that share a planet together. And there's so much, as we saw emotionally, that connects us, and so much reason to act in concert as people